Ladies and gentlemen, we often measure wealth in numbers, sums in a bank account, the size of a home, the car parked in the driveway. But beneath these symbols lies a deeper truth. External wealth is often a reflection of internal mastery. There is a hidden architecture behind every success story, not merely knowledge or strategy, but a particular way of being. It is a psychological orientation toward life, a mindset not merely concerned with gaining riches, but with awakening potential, confronting fear, and cultivating power within. Today I want to take you beneath the surface, into the realm where true wealth is born, the mind. Because to become a millionaire in the outer world, you must first think like one in your inner world. Let us journey through 5 essential principles that shape the millionaire mind, not from the pages of finance books, but from the depths of human consciousness. We do not see the world as it is, we see it as we are. These are not just poetic words, but a truth woven into the very fabric of the human psyche. The world is not simply experienced, it is interpreted. It is filtered, shaped, and reassembled by the architecture of belief that dwells within the mind. Before a millionaire ever builds a fortune, they construct a vision. Before that vision takes shape in the world, it must first find sanctuary in belief. Belief is not mere wishful thinking. It is not a passive hope whispered in the quiet of night. Belief is an act of creation. It is the invisible chisel that carves new paths in a forest of impossibility. The individual who believes is not merely anticipating success. They are authoring it. They are scripting the contours of a new reality that, while unseen by others, becomes as real to them as the ground beneath their feet. Consider the story of Sarah Blakely, who dared to believe when no one else did. A woman in her late 20s, with no background in fashion, no connections in the business world, and no assurances of success, carried an idea in her heart that refused to be silenced. She was selling fax machines door to door, a job defined by rejection. Yet each slammed door was not a verdict, but a test. She believed that she could transform the way women felt in their own skin, and that belief burned more brightly than any doubt cast upon her. Eventually, that fire lit a path to a billion-dollar brand. This is not a rare miracle. It is an illustration of the alchemical power of belief. What the world calls impossible is often just unfamiliar. The difference between those who wait for permission and those who create their own path lies in one thing: what they believe about themselves, about the world, and about what is possible. A belief does not come to us pure. It is inherited, shaped in the shadows of childhood, handed down by the frightened, the cautious, the wounded. We are told stories that money is the root of evil, that ambition is arrogance, that wealth is reserved for others, those born with gifts or connections or luck. Slowly, these whispers become walls, and before long we are not merely living in the world, we are imprisoned by inherited fears we never chose to carry. To break free, we must turn inward, not outward. The journey to wealth is not just through markets and meetings, but through mirrors, through self-inquiry. Ask with bold sincerity, what do I truly believe about wealth? Who gave me that belief? Was it rooted in truth or in their fear? This kind of questioning is not comfortable. It stirs the still waters of the subconscious and pulls forgotten memories to the surface. Perhaps a parent who always struggled, a teacher who mocked your dreams, a friend who rolled their eyes when you said you wanted more. But in facing these ghosts, you reclaim your power. You become the author of your beliefs, rather than a passive heir to someone else's limitations. True belief does not mean the absence of doubt. It means choosing to move forward in spite of it. It means knowing the road will be hard and choosing to walk it anyway. It is the compass that keeps you aligned when the winds of failure or fear try to knock you off course. Belief is the first act of wealth, not in currency, but in courage, not in the marketplace, but in the mind. The moment you dare to believe that you are capable of building something extraordinary, you begin to rise above the noise. The world starts to change, not because the world has shifted, but because you have. Every great fortune you see around you was once a fragile, flickering thought, held in the hands of someone brave enough to believe. And so the question turns to you, not as a challenge, but as an invitation. What would be possible if you believed as fiercely as they did? What might awaken in you if you chose to see the world not as it is, but as it could be? That is the beginning of the millionaire mind, not found in bank statements or balance sheets, but in the quiet, radical decision to believe. The mind, when left to its instincts, behaves much like a wild horse, powerful, full of potential, yet prone to panic and chaos when startled. Left untrained, this force can sabotage your every intention, no matter how noble or well-planned. Emotional discipline, then, becomes the reins by which we guide this great inner power, transforming it from a source of disorder into a channel of focused creation. Without such discipline, the mind becomes your jailer. With it, the mind becomes your most loyal ally. Emotions are not the enemy, they are messengers, ancient and instinctive, arising from the unseen depths of the psyche to alert us, to guide us, and sometimes to protect us, but they are not always accurate. They speak in the language of survival, not in the dialect of aspiration. Fear was crafted in the fires of ancient threats. It does not know the difference between a lion in the grass and a phone call from the bank. And so we must learn to listen without obeying, to feel without collapsing, and to move forward even as we tremble. Those who reach great heights are not devoid of fear. They are simply not owned by it. They do not run when storms gather overhead. They wait, they watch, and when the time is right, they act. Not because they are fearless, but because they are focused. Emotional discipline is the art of self-governance. It is the quiet power of not reacting. It is choosing response over impulse, presence over panic. Consider the example of Warren Buffett. In times of financial turmoil, when headlines scream and markets shake, the world rushes to safety or scrambles in confusion. But Buffett waits. He studies the fear, not from within it, but from above it. When the masses act from emotion, he acts from principle. He once said, "Be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful." This is not merely investment strategy, it is a profound psychological posture. It is the ability to remain inwardly stable while others are outwardly lost. It is the maturity to hold your center, not because circumstances are calm, but because you have trained your mind to be. We are conditioned to seek relief at the first sign of discomfort. A difficult conversation, avoid it. A moment of doubt, distract yourself. But true mastery comes not from escape, but from engagement. You must learn to sit with discomfort as if it were an old friend bearing hard truths. When anxiety arises before a job interview, do not silence it with shallow affirmations. Turn toward it. Notice the thoughts it brings, the tension in your body. Observe it like a scientist, not a victim. Breathe. Label it. This is fear. This is uncertainty. In that act of recognition, you begin to loosen its grip. Emotional discipline is not a dramatic act. It begins in the smallest of moments. When your flight is delayed, when your partner criticizes you, when your account dips below what you expected. These are the training grounds of the mind. They are the invitation to grow, to pause, to feel, to ask yourself, what part of me is being stirred right now, and what would it mean to respond from wisdom instead of reactivity? This journey does not ask you to become robotic or emotionally numb. On the contrary, asks you to become so intimate with your emotions that they no longer frighten you, that their rising becomes a signal, not a threat, a source of information, not a master demanding obedience. Millionaire minds are not born. They are cultivated through thousands of such choices. They are shaped in moments of self-restraint, of courage, of honesty. When fear whispers, "You will fail," the disciplined mind replies, "Then I will learn." When anger growls, "Strike back," the disciplined mind considers, "What will this create?" These minds do not suppress emotions, they metabolize them. They understand the emotional self is not a beast to be beaten, but a voice to be understood and rechanneled. And so the task is not to rid yourself of fear or anger or insecurity. The task is to become greater than them, to grow a self within that is more spacious than any emotion that passes through, to become a vessel wide enough to hold pain and possibility at the same time. Only then can you lead not only others but yourself through the uncertainty that stands between you and your vision. This is the quiet revolution that builds fortunes, not the noise of ambition, but the discipline of the soul. We are conditioned from early life to equate effort with worth, to believe that the more hours we pour into something, the more we deserve in return. This belief, though seemingly fair, becomes a quiet chain around the neck of the soul. It traps the imagination within the arithmetic of labor, counting minutes instead of meaning. But those who shape the world, those who build fortunes not just in wealth but in legacy, do not measure life in time. They measure it in value. The world does not reward effort alone, it rewards impact. The ones who rise beyond mediocrity are not the ones who simply work longer. They are the ones who create what did not exist before, who offer what others did not know they needed, who solve problems so deeply that people gladly exchange money for the relief, beauty, or transformation they bring. Time is a tool, not a currency. When you think like a millionaire, you stop asking, "How can I earn more per hour?" and begin asking, "How can I make this hour echo into eternity?" Think of J.K. Rowling, alone, uncertain, struggling to raise a child on government support. She was not surrounded by luxury, nor did she possess any obvious power or position, but she carried within her a story, raw and unfinished, flickering in the corners of her mind. While others chased wages, she gave herself to that story. She built a world of meaning. What she created from solitude became a sanctuary for millions. Her books were not measured in pages, they were measured in transformation. She did not sell time, she offered value, and value multiplied into empire. This is not about writing novels, it is about understanding that your greatest wealth will emerge not from repetition, but from revelation. What do you see that others miss? What pain have you endured that could be alchemized into healing for someone else? What knowledge have you gathered, perhaps quietly, that could become a lantern for those still stumbling in the dark? Value is not reserved for artists or entrepreneurs. A mechanic who solves problems with clarity and care creates value. A teacher who awakens curiosity in their students creates value. A mother who nurtures children into emotionally intelligent adults contributes more than she may ever be paid for. But to train the mind like a millionaire means becoming conscious of that value, to see the offering, to shape it, and eventually to structure it so that it becomes scalable and enduring. Trading time for money is linear, it has a ceiling, but value creation is exponential. It expands with insight, with strategy, with vision. It invites you to move from being a worker to becoming a creator, from executing orders to originating solutions. And it demands that you stop merely working in systems and begin building them. The shift begins in small ways. Instead of asking, "What do I have to do today?" ask, "What can I create today that didn't exist yesterday?" Instead of obsessing over hours clocked, ask, "How deeply did I solve a problem? How clearly did I serve someone? How beautifully did I connect, teach, or build? This reorientation lifts the soul out of survival and into sovereignty. The path to wealth, true wealth, is not paved in punched clocks, but in fulfilled needs. Look around you. Every product you use, every platform you scroll, every book you read, these are not accidents. They are responses to human longing. And someone, somewhere, dared to meet that longing with value. That someone is no different from you, except they shifted the question they were living. They stopped asking how to survive and started asking how to serve. And in this, the deeper mystery unfolds. Money in its highest form is not a goal. It is a shadow. It follows behind those who are busy building value. It cannot be chased directly, for it runs from desperation, but it gathers quietly around those who pour themselves into meaningful creation. The wealthy mind understands this dance. It stays devoted to the offering, the solution, the service, and lets money arrive as the natural response of a world being healed, delighted, or transformed. So ask yourself, not from ambition, but from awakening, how am I contributing value today? What lives might be better because of something I created, something I said, something I solved? When you live inside that question, wealth is no longer a finish line. It becomes a companion on your journey, following quietly behind a life of purpose. Most people live their lives trying to fit into shapes that were never made for them. They chase dreams inherited from others, parents who feared failure, teachers who praised obedience, friends who rewarded conformity. Wealth for many becomes not an expression of purpose, but a plea for love. We imagine that if we gain enough status, approval, or recognition, we will finally be enough. But the soul does not find peace in applause. It finds peace in alignment. When your inner truth is misaligned with your outer pursuit, there is a constant undercurrent of tension, a quiet despair hidden beneath achievement. You may accumulate riches, titles, or applause, but inside a voice whispers, "This is not who I am," and that voice does not go away. It becomes louder the more you silence it. To live out of sync with yourself is a form of slow suffocation. You smile for the world, while a part of you quietly disappears. Millionaires of true depth do not begin by asking, "What will people admire?" They begin by asking, "What is real in me? What calls to me so deeply that even failure would feel worthwhile?" This is the birthplace of purpose, not something imposed, but something discovered. It does not shout, it whispers. It does not come from the crowd. It comes in the silence when all voices but your own have faded. To train the mind like a millionaire is to attune yourself to that whisper and to have the courage to follow it. Elon Musk is often cited for his innovation and risk-taking, but beyond the headlines lies something more fundamental, an unrelenting alignment with a personal mission. Whether one agrees with his vision or not, his wealth is not accidental. It is born from obsession with an inner calling to accelerate human progress. He has faced public ridicule, sleepless nights, and the brink of collapse, yet he continues forward. Why? Because he is not asking for permission to live his truth. He is answering to something within. The force of such clarity is greater than praise, more resilient than criticism, and more sustaining than any reward. This is not about being like Elon Musk. This is about remembering that you too have an inner compass. You too have a voice that existed before the world told you who to be. When was the last time you listened to it? Not the voice of fear or ego, but the one that speaks from depth. The voice that speaks not of success, but of meaning. The greatest wealth is not in accumulation, but in integration. When who you are within and what you offer the world are one and the same, you walk differently. You don't chase opportunity, you become it. You don't shrink for approval, you radiate from conviction. There is no need to impress when you are at peace with your path. And ironically, it is this very alignment that attracts true opportunity, for people sense when someone is real. Ask yourself, with raw honesty, what would I create, build, or pursue if no one was watching? If no one ever clapped, what matters so deeply that it would call me even in the quiet, even in the face of failure? The answer to that is your compass. That is your gold. And the world needs what only you can give, not the version of you that pleases others, but the version that is deeply, unmistakably alive. We have been taught to look outward for validation, to count followers, bank balances, degrees, or applause. But none of these can make up for the aching void of living disconnected from yourself. Approval fades, status shifts, but the peace of inner alignment endures. It strengthens with each step taken in truth. It builds something no external reward can replicate: integrity of being. To think like a millionaire is not to echo the noise of the world. It is to cultivate stillness so you can hear your own soul speak. In that stillness, your path becomes clearer, not easier, perhaps, but more powerful. The storms will still come, but they cannot shake someone who stands rooted in purpose. And those who are rooted, who walk in alignment, who choose authenticity over applause, are the ones whose wealth becomes not just material, but meaningful. So you must choose, not between rich or poor, success or failure, but between truth and imitation, between the quiet power of your inner knowing and the fleeting comfort of outer approval. Only one of those can carry you across the long road to a life that is not only prosperous, but profoundly your own. There is a moment in every journey where the ground falls away beneath you. The plan unravels, the idea crumbles, the silence of disappointment settles like dust in your lungs. And in that moment, when all illusions are stripped away, you stand alone with failure. This is not a punishment. This is a rite of passage. For those who rise to great heights do not arrive by floating on luck. They arrive by falling over and over and learning to stand differently each time. The path to wealth, to mastery, to any meaningful life is never straight. It bends and breaks. It demands a kind of internal resilience that cannot be built through comfort. What shapes the mind into something powerful is not perfection but persistence. Failure is not a detour, it is the fire in which clarity is born. The difference between those who stagnate and those who soar is not talent, it is the quality of the relationship they have with defeat. Failure is not a verdict, it is a mirror. It reflects the assumptions that no longer serve you. It exposes what you have outgrown. It tears down the false scaffolding so you can rebuild something stronger. But most people are taught to fear failure as if it were the end. We are raised to avoid embarrassment, to hide our mistakes, to wear masks of certainty, and so we spend our lives playing small games, because to risk more would be to risk falling. But those who live deeply, and those who become truly wealthy, do not run from the fall. They build wings on the way down. Consider Thomas Edison, a man who failed not once, but over 1,000 times in the pursuit of a single invention. Each failure was public. Each failure could have been final. But he saw differently. When asked how he endured, he replied, "I have not failed. I've just found 1,000 ways that won't work." In that answer lies the secret of a mind that has transcended shame. He understood that failure is simply feedback, a compass correcting your direction, not condemning your worth. And this is the shift we must make if we are to train our minds like those who build legacies. You must stop interpreting setbacks as signs that you are not enough. Instead, see them as evidence that you are engaging with something real. To fail means you are experimenting, exploring, daring to disturb the universe. That is sacred work. That is the work of creators, not imitators. We learn more in failure than we ever do in success. When things go well, we tend to coast. We assume our thinking is correct. We stop asking questions. But when things break, when the business collapses, the deal falls through, the dream dissolves, that is when you are handed the keys to deeper wisdom. The pain strips away ego. The loss forces you to become honest with yourself. And from that honesty comes a new kind of strength, not built on bravado, but on truth. But to access this power, you must resist the urge to retreat. Most people stumble and never get back up, not because they cannot, but because they are ashamed. The voice in their head says, "This means you're not good enough." But that voice is a lie. That voice is a shadow, born from a world that punishes failure instead of understanding it. Do not give it power. Instead, lean in, reflect. What did this failure reveal about your assumptions? What part of you needs to grow? What new path is now visible because the old one collapsed? To fail is to be in motion. It means you are not standing still. It means you are testing, reaching, daring. Millionaire minds understand this intuitively. They expect failure not as a tragedy, but as part of the equation. They do not avoid risk, they manage it. They prepare for storms, and when they fall, they don't curse the ground, they study it. Your relationship with failure will define your capacity for success. If you see it as shame, you will hide. If you see it as guidance, you will evolve. Every stumble becomes a stone in the foundation of something greater, but only if you choose to return, not with blind optimism, but with refined vision. Return, not as the same person, but as one who has been deepened by the fire. This is the inner alchemy of greatness, the transformation of failure into wisdom, of defeat into direction, of wounds into openings. The millionaire mind is not protected from loss, it is forged by it. It does not ask for an easy path, it asks for the strength to walk the path that calls. So when you fall, as you will, do not withdraw. Do not break faith with your own journey. Stand again, learn again, begin again. This is how empires are built. One fall, one rise, one lesson at a time. Each of us carries a hidden treasury, not in our wallets, but in our wills. The millionaire mind is not born, it is built. It is built when we choose belief over fear, when we master emotion instead of being mastered, when we create value instead of selling time, when we align with purpose instead of begging for praise, and when we dance with failure instead of hiding from it. Train your mind like a millionaire, and you will discover that the greatest fortune is not in what you possess, but in who you become. The world doesn't need more money. It needs more people who have awakened to their true power. Be one of them.